Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Little Craft Room podcast. I'm Nicola. I am the kind of owner, founder, whatever you want to say, of a Little Craft Room. You'll find me on Instagram, Ravelry, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, lots of places. I lose track, but yeah, Little Craft Room, most places you'll find me. You may also notice as well, I'm a bit quiet. Let's just turn it up a little bit. You may notice I have some new little pictures at the bottom, courtesy of my very hardworking boyfriend. He also redesigned my kind of starting soon card, and he's redesigned my tea break card as well. So they all look very, very pretty. So I can thank my boyfriend for those. So yeah, I just thought this was really cute. If you're joining me again today, hello, thank you very much for coming along. If you're here for the first time, hello. I did have a break last week because it is September and we have started... Oh, hello, UK. Yeah, I think they're really awesome. I think they're awesome. It's September now, so school went back last week. So I did say in advance that I wasn't going to be streaming last week because I was going to need some adjustment time, and I'm pretty sure I don't even know what I did last Wednesday evening. I think I was probably just sat on the sofa just staring into space, just existing a little bit, which is probably a good thing. I think I really needed that last week, but I don't want to get too into the habit of not doing it. I really want to carry on with the stream, so I'm back this week and I'm really glad to be back, actually. It's nice to be back to it, especially now that things have got a bit more into a routine. So yeah, we're back. What I'm wearing this week, I went a little bit different this week. So this is a shawl. This is the Stormy Day shawl by Kirsten Ballering. Pattern is here. It's actually like an official Shapies after party pattern, so I always forget how exactly this works. I think Shapies and the designers kind of the designers design it, and then I think Shapies agrees to kind of sponsor it, maybe not the word I'm after, but they basically agree to kind of have their yarn as the recommended. They kind of help to sell the patterns and things like that, so it is an official Shapies pattern, but Kirsten Ballering is the designer of this one. It was the first shawl I ever made. In fact, I will take it off so that you get the full effect. There you go. How gorgeous is that? So this was made using a Shapies whirl, which, if you're not familiar with a whirl, I have one actually here. So they're beautiful yarns, but one of their kind of key features is the colour changes. They've got just such a lovely slow colour change. It's not one of those where you can really see the joins, and it's really obvious where the colours change. So they've just got the beautiful gradients. With it being a Shapies pattern, I did use the recommended yarn. You may notice I did it in the recommended colour because it has teal in it, and we all know I'm a sucker for teal. So this is Green Tea Tipple, was this shade, and I just adore that gradient. It's so pretty, and I think it really matches with the name as well, like Stormy Day. Like this almost looks like amethyst. Oh, that one really does, yeah. But yeah, I loved how this matched with the name, like Stormy Day. I could absolutely see this being like a storm out at sea. You've got the clouds and then just the gorgeous colour. So yeah, I just, the second I found out the name of this, I was like, I can't change colour. And I'm always in two minds about that, because part of me who thinks, am I being really unimaginative, just copying the exact same colour? But then I really, really like it. So, I think I just think she made a really good choice. I'm just agreeing with her choice in the matter. So Shapies whirls are primarily cotton yarns. They're 60% cotton and 40% acrylic, so they're quite durable. They're machine washable, so it does make them quite a nice robust yarn to use. But yeah, it was interesting. It was, like I said, it was the first shawl I've ever made. It was also the first whirl I've ever used. I've since used, including this, one, two, I think three. I've made this. I made the Celestial Mandala using a whirl. I've made, oh, let's turn you around. There we go. This is my own design of shawl, actually. That one is the Cordelia shawl. That one is called, oh, what's that colourway called? Sea Breeze Teas, that one's called. And that one's Lavender Delicious. I do have a shawl lined up to make in that one. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's a gorgeous dragonfly shawl. But yeah, whirls work beautifully for shawls, and actually you'll find a lot of patterns for shawls that use whirls, because I mean, just, do I need to say more? It's so pretty. It was a really nice pattern. It was one of those with a repeating pattern, so you can see, if I turn it that way, the light's coming through it a little bit, but you've got some kind of little popcorns on here, but it does repeat as a pattern, which is quite nice, because once you've got the initial kind of stitch pattern, you can just crack on and keep going. I did write down all my stitch counts, because that was the one thing this didn't include, was once you got past row 20, I think, it didn't include any stitch counts, so I did just jot down what rows equated to and how many stitches I should have, and that really helped me out. But the one thing I have discovered that I tend to do with shawls, because I've made a few now since, I don't know how I manage it, because I do get gauge, and I've checked, and I get gauge, but somehow every time I start forming it into a shawl, I always get like a little longer on like the length of it, and then when it comes to wingspan, it's just never, it's always a little shorter, so I don't feel like my dimensions are doing what they should. So the wingspan normally doesn't end up quite as wide as I'd like it, and then the depth ends up a little larger than I'd like it. It's not excessively so, like it's definitely still useful, like, you know, it's not redundant as a wearable item, but it's just really annoying, which is strange. Like I said, I do get gauge, but maybe that's just one of my quirks. But I do wear this quite a lot. I haven't over the summer, because I tend to wear it as I was earlier, so I don't tend to wear it as like a wrap around the shoulders type shawl. I do tend to wear it as a bit more of like a scarf. So let's just tuck my ends in like this, which it's not so long that kind of it looks a bit daft. It's kind of just perfect length for a bit of a neck scarf. I wear this quite a lot for school, actually, especially in the colder months. I do it because I work in a lab, so it's usually a little cold in there. Obviously it gets taken off for any practicals. There's no way I'm letting any fire or acid or anything near this, but yeah, it's always nice to keep my neck really warm. So whenever I do wear triangle shawls, this is kind of one of my go-to ways to wear it, because I do really like this. And actually this has gone down really well at school as well. Obviously as a teacher, occasionally, I mean, all of my students know that I knit and crochet anyway. They're more than used to it by now. And I'll come in and they'll be like, oh, did you make that? Yes, I did. But actually this has gone down so well that I've had students asking for the pattern, because I do teach some of the students how to crochet and knit as well. And I have had some of the students ask me what pattern this was, what yarn do you use. So it's inspired a couple of students as well, which is always really nice. Because the student in question, she just absolutely adored it. She was like, I want it, I want to make it, where do I get the yarn, where do I get the pattern? So I had to like kind of show her, direct her to where to get it from, and she started. I don't think she's finished it yet, but she did start it last year, so I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how hers turns out. It was really nice. But yes, so the Stormy Day Shawl by Kirsten Ballering. So in terms of the whips, my works in progress, With school, it's been a little slow, but I have managed to do some things. So I will update you on the portal blanket. Just reminder of what it looks like. So this is the blanket that I've been doing for my boyfriend that I started 2 years ago, that I'm less than a quarter of the way through. I'm actually going to kind of talk about this a little bit more later. But what I did say last time was that I wanted to do a little bit more on here so that I could show you why it's fiddly to do. So I have progressed a little further, but you can see now, just based on how many different pieces of yarn I've got hanging off it, why it's a little fiddly. So just so that you can see what I've done since last time, that stitch marker that you can just about see dangling there, that was where I was in the last podcast. So I've done all that since the last one. Look at me go. But it has started on the pattern, the contrast colour. So I'm doing this one right in the corner here, this little cake one. So is that facing the right way for you guys? Yes, it is. So you can see I've just started like the bottom kind of edge of this cake. But as you can see, the way I'm doing it, I hate the first one. I did try doing separate balls of yarn, but it just got so messy. So you can see I've kind of just wound my own teeny little bits. Let me just try and untangle them. There we go. And it's a little easier to manage. In the first square that I did, I was carrying the yarn underneath. So when I was doing the black, I was carrying my white thread underneath. And that way I wasn't having to work off loads and loads of different pieces of yarn. But what I found was on those black bits, you could feel the fabric was a little stiffer because it's got more yarn content in, so I was kind of crocheting over it. There were some times that the white started to show through as well, and I wasn't enjoying that at all. So for the second one, I did look at how I could improve that, and this was the best way that I could think of. I've just completely tangled that up again. So this is why I don't get much of it done, because I spend most of my time untangling it. Oh, I've really made a mess of it now. That might be a problem for me to sort out later. But yeah, so you can see I have been making progress. I promise I've been doing stuff. So yeah, I said I've done a fair bit. I said my little starfish is there. What row number am I on? I'm on 22 out of 80, so I'm a quarter of the way through this square. But just so that you can see for next time, I'm going to remove the stitch marker and replace it on the row I just finished. There we go. So that next stream I can show you if I've done any more, which I'm hoping I'm hoping I will have done. But we'll have to see, because obviously it is now September and the Christmas makes are piling up. I know I feel a bit bad mentioning the C word already, but when you're a crafter, you do start having to prepare for these things a little bit early. So I don't know how much of this I'm going to get done. It might have to take a pause, which I don't want to do, because we've established I'm not very good at carrying on with this, but deadline Christmas, so we will see. But let me just put this back in the bag before I tangle it all back up. So I have made some progress on the portal blanket. I've also made some progress on one of my Christmas present ones that I can't show you, so you'll just have to take my word for that. I have been working a lot on the single malt sweater as well over the last couple of days. I kind of found a renewed motivation for this one. I have been doing it, I've not just been leaving it, but one of the ones I've been doing, it's been with quite a fine yarn, and it's been slow going. And on Saturday I thought, yeah, you know what, I really want to pick up the single malt again, because this is a worsted weight yarn. and I thought I just really need to feel like I'm getting somewhere. I really need to knit and feel like it's doing something. So I picked this up again on Saturday, and I made that much progress. I did a decent amount on this. So that was where I was at the last time I did a stream, and I did a fair amount. I was really chuffed with this. I adore the texture on this. It's so nice. I don't know what it's called. I'm sure there is a name for it, but in terms of knitting stitch names, I'm not the best at remembering them. I'm much better at remembering kind of crochet textures. But I just don't know how well that's coming through. Not very well. Oh, that's better. There we go. It is also upside down. This is the bottom of the jumper. But it's lovely. It's knit one, purl one on one row, and then just knitting the next row, and then knit one, purl one, and then knitting. But it alternates when you do the knit purl rows. It doesn't line up with the knits and purls from the row before the one, the just plain knit one. It does kind of, it's offset. So you're kind of working in fours. But I'm really loving this texture. It's a lovely squishy texture. And I just feel like this jumper is going to be super warm. So I'm really excited to finish this one, actually. It's one of those though where I don't want to keep going, because I do want to measure it on I want to pop it on my dad and kind of get a gauge for the length, because it does stretch out a little bit. And when I tried it on him last time and measured it, he seemed to want it just a little longer than the pattern suggests. So I think at some point when I'm free, I am going to see if I can try it on him again, because I mean it's a really easy one just to mindlessly knit on, because it's just repeating from this point, and as long as I know which row I'm on, which it's getting easier to tell actually. I barely even need to keep track. I am counting the rows just in case I make another one, so that I've got an idea of how many rows I would want for the length. But in terms of keeping track, I don't really need to at this point, because you can see in the pattern what row you need to do next. But I am really looking forward to seeing how this one finishes. So I do want to try it on him, because it's looking a decent length now. And I just don't want to rip back, because I think there's a ribbed hem on the bottom of it. And I would hate to try it on him and then have to rip a few rows back. I'm not one for ripping back in knitting. I know that a lot of people like it to be really perfect, like it to be really right. And when it comes to crochet, I'm a lot happier to rip it back. But with knitting, because you're working with all live stitches, if you rip back, you've then got to re-thread the needle through every single one of them. And I don't know, it just makes me want to cry a little bit. It's just making sure that you get every stitch, you don't drop any stitches. I'm not really very good for using lifelines as well. I know that people say, especially if you're doing something unfamiliar, having a lifeline threaded through. So if any of you are crocheters, not knitters, it would basically be like a piece of cotton that so I could thread it through where the needle is now, keep knitting, and then if I needed to rip back, I've kind of got that cotton just holding those stitches, so I wouldn't get any further back than that, because that lifeline, as the name suggests, would kind of stop me, and it would hold the stitches like my cable is. I suppose that would be an option, but I'm probably not going to do that. Oh well. But yeah, I will try it on him and see where it goes. So I won't be doing loads more on this, because I don't know whether I'm going to need to extend it by a lot or start the ribbing. It does, it's one of those where it's quite a tight fit as well. There's some negative ease in this, so it does stretch when you put it on, and if it stretches that way, it's going to shrink that way. So it's really difficult to gauge whether it's long enough. But I'm really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. It's just, and it's just such a lovely yarn as well. It's West Yorkshire Spinners, the Croft Aran colours. It's 100% wool, and I just really like it. It's got a really nice smell to it, which sounds a little weird. but it's just got a really nice, really like wholesome, cozy smell to it. I really like woolly smell, as long as it's not wet wool. Wet wool doesn't smell very nice. Am I a moth? Maybe I am. Maybe I'm a moth in secret. Secret moth. Just like the smell of the wool. But it is very nice. Although it's really interesting that you've just shown up, because actually your project is the next one I'm going to talk about. I'm pretty sure you do know about this. If not, surprise. But your project is the work in progress that was actually going... Oh, you do know about it, good. This is where I give you my excuse as to why this one's taken so long. Yeah, I do have a genuine reason for this taking so long. So, sorry, the commenter that's just joined in has a housewarming present for the house they moved into 4 months ago now. 4 months ago, something like that. It's very nearly finished. So this is the Hibernate blanket. So there you go. This is, in fact, you've not seen this yet, so this is kind of like an exclusive for you. Let's get the single malt off screen. There we go. This so far is the Hibernate blanket. It's rather large. Yeah, it's going to be lovely and squishy. So I have been doing it. You've not been forgotten. You've not been missed. So there we go. That's the bottom. So it's quite large. I haven't finished it. I've got a little bit more left to do. I've started on the bottom. I haven't been weaving my ends in as I go because I'm naughty like that, and apparently I just really like to make life miserable for myself. So yeah, I hope you like the look of it so far. It's coming through a little bit more brown on camera. The commitment. Oh, thank you very much. That's not even the half of it. So where's my hook for it gone? Oh, there we go. So this I'm using Hibernate. It's one of the Hibernate blanket yarns. I know that there's quite a few different ones. I've thrown the yarn label away. I think it's Hibernate Big Blanket. Obviously it's a really, really chunky yarn, and it actually uses a 10mm hook. So that is the chunky boy that I am using for this. And because it is so chunky, it works up quite quickly. So the hook that I'm kind of hooking it all with, no, yeah, just nod and agree, yeah. Because it's such a chunky yarn, you think, yeah, it's going to work up really quickly, really speedy blanket project, which yes, in theory, it absolutely should. However, what I have found is it's so chunky that actually it's more than just kind of like, you know, flick of the fingers. It's actually taking a lot of like arm and wrist movements to do this. Now, just under a year ago now, I sprained my wrist quite badly. I do kind of an acrobatic sport. It's a bit, so it's like circus acrobatics, you know, where they have the hoop and they do all the fancy tricks. The aerial hoop it's called. I do that as my sport, and I fell November last year and sprained my wrist badly. I ended up in A&E having it x-rayed because we were pretty worried I'd broken it. It was so bad. I actually lost sensation in those two fingers. It was a bit of a panic, and it took ages for this to fix. It was really annoying. I actually feel like it would have healed quicker if I'd actually broken it. I'm convinced. I genuinely think if I'd broken it, I'd have been better a lot quicker. And generally, knitting and crochet's been fine. And I did check with the doctor. I was sat in A&E in the middle of the night. I've just had my x-ray and she says it's not broken. It's just a really bad strain. Just make sure you rest it. And straight away I went, okay, but can I knit? And can I crochet? And she just looked at me and I was like, please. Because if I can't do my sport, you can't take my aerial, you can't take my crochet away from me, please. I need to do something with it. And she kind of was like, well, if it was your ankle, I'd tell you to keep walking on it. So I guess, and if it doesn't hurt, crack on. I was like, okay, cool. I will take that as absolute gospel. You're a doctor, whatever. So generally, knitting and crochet doesn't aggravate it, but that has. I think it's just because it's such an enormous yarn, because it's so chunky. I think just the exaggerated motion sets it off a little more than anything else. So I do have to do this one in bits. So I can do like 1 or 2 rows, and then my wrist is kind of just like, nope, I'm done. So then I have to put it down, which is why it's taken a little longer than I anticipated. So I'm really sorry. I was hoping to get it to you soon, especially with it getting colder. You guess. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. But you can see that it is nearly done. It's pretty big. It's pretty big. Yeah, I'm hoping to get it to you while it's still cold enough to need a blanket. But yeah, so I mean, like I said, it's quite large. It's very nearly done. I'm hoping. Oh, thank you. But still, I want to get it done. Also, because apart from anything else, it's massive, and I kind of want to. Plus, I reckon it's going to be really nice. Making blankets is one of those things where you don't even mean to, but you accidentally test them out as you're making them, because you just end up like wearing it as a blanket because you're sat making it and you've got it draped over your lap. Can confirm it's really cozy. It's really cozy. So yeah, I'm actually really excited to get this finished so that you can really kind of snuggle up. It, like I said, it's going to be a bit oversized, so you can properly kind of nestle in and get really snuggly with it. So nearly done. I'm on the last stretch. The bulk of it is done. I'm just on the white bit, and then it'll kind of go back to dark grey, then white again, and then just the final finished bit. So it's there. It's not been forgotten. It is definitely on the way. So that's another whip. I feel like I'm just introducing more whips every time, and I'm just saying, oh, by the way, I do have another one. I'm not one of those kind of compulsive starters that never finishes anything. I do finish my projects, I promise. There's only one other whip that you haven't seen. No, it's not putting me out. Like I said, if anything, I do want to get it finished, because I want to give it to you. But yeah, there's only one other whip that you haven't seen, and that is a top that I started making, and then it didn't do quite what I wanted it to, and I wasn't in the mood for it to not work, so I kind of put it down. So I am going to go back to it. I'm hoping to go back to it after Christmas, but that is currently away in my box over there, so I'm not going to be getting that one out. And then the other, it's not really a whip yet. It's one of the ones I was thinking about starting. If you watched my last podcast, you will have seen that I was gifted a lot of yarn and part finished projects from a friend of mine whose mum passed away earlier in the year. And he asked if I would mind finishing off some of the projects, some of the projects that she hadn't managed to finish. So I did kind of like an unpacking last week, not last week, week before. So it was about an hour and a half long, last time's podcast, because there was just so much. There were 3 bags of yarn and projects, which was quite exciting, really. But it was really nice to kind of look through and learn about kind of her organisational system, how she did her projects. So I've done a little bit of reorganising. I've basically organised. I split it into 2 bags instead of 3, and I've got a yarn bag and a projects bag. So the projects one being they were all amigurumi as well. So at least there's kind of like a familiar theme of stuff. I'm really familiar with amigurumi style crochet, so that shouldn't be too difficult. But I've got the bag of them over there, and in a little bit. Not quite yet. I am going to decide with in fact, you know what, I think I might roll a dice. I'll roll a dice, one of my Dungeons and Dragons dice. I'll arrange them all and I'll pick a number. Sorry, I'll pick a dice, I'll roll it, and I will see which one to start off with. Get a bit spontaneous. So I'm actually going to do that probably after the tea break. I feel like I need to come up with a name for this this kind of finishing task, like for all these little teddies. But I'm not very imaginative with stuff like that. So if any of you've got a better idea than I have, please feel free to tell me. Like the teddy task, that's as good as you're gonna get from me. So yeah, if any of you have any suggestions, like Project Teddy, or I don't know, I feel like I need an overarching kind of umbrella term for this task that I'm gonna do, because there's a good 10 or 12 projects in there. He's well aware as well that I'm not going to be churning these out. It'll be occasionally every month or so I'll hand over another one and go, there you go, done it. But yeah, I'm really excited. Some of them were so cute. Some of them were really cute. I actually haven't had a chance to look all the way through the enormous pile of patterns that she handed over as well. And most of them seem to be amigurumi ones, although I have started to match patterns to projects if they weren't matched up already. She had an amazing organisational system where a little piece of yarn was in the packet with each pattern, so it was actually quite easy to match them up because I just looked for the matching yarn. So thank you so much for that. That was really, really helpful. It's made me start questioning my own organisational system because mine is not that good. I know what everything here, all of my yarn, I know exactly what everything's going to be, but nobody else would ever know. I think unless you had access to my Ravelry with all of my kind of stash. I'm not even very good at putting the stash stuff on Ravelry. I'm good at using the patterns and the projects and things like that, but when it comes to monitoring stash, I'm too busy for that. I've got a life to live. That's just a way for me to procrastinate actually knitting the things, and I don't need any more reasons to procrastinate. I think we can establish I'm pretty good at that anyway. Yeah, so sorry, talking a lot for a change. So yeah, I've got quite a few things to keep me going. Secret Whip, Portal Square, Single Malt Sweater, Hibernate Blanket, and then one of my teddy projects. I do want to come up with a better name for that. I'll have to have a think. If you have any ideas, please drop them in the comments. Or either that, or I'll have to come up with something, and then we'll just have to all live with it. I think I'm going to take this opportunity to take a tea break, except I'm not going to have tea this time. The Monstera plant thing. Oh yes! Oh, I forgot about that. That took me a second. Somebody sent me a picture of a crocheted Monstera. I've always wanted a Monstera. I think they're really, really nice, but I have a dog and they're not pet safe plants. So it's one of those I probably wouldn't ever be able to have a real one, so I might crochet one instead. And then we've just got that sat in the living room, but that would be quite cool. Yes, I think this is going to be a good opportunity for a tea break, but I'm not going to do tea today. I think I'm going to treat myself to a hot chocolate. We're in September now. I can do hot chocolates. We're in the Burr months, so September, and I think I'm going to go for hot chocolate. So I'm going to go and make myself a hot chocolate. Feel free to go get yourself a lovely drink too, and I will be back in about 5 minutes. In the meantime, enjoy my really pretty new tea break card. Boba tea. Oh, I haven't tried boba tea. I'll have to try that at some point. I do like my tea. I might have to give that a go. Yeah, I will see you in 5 minutes. I have returned with a very nice drink. I hope you're enjoying something really nice as well. Kind of just chilling, but I have my hot chocolate. I'm the first to admit I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to hot chocolate. So my favourite type of hot chocolate is a brand called Whittard of Chelsea. I've been having their stuff for years. We used to always go into the shop in the Trafford Centre in Manchester. I don't know whether it's still there. I haven't been to the Trafford Centre in years. But back when I lived up north, we used to go at least once a year. And there was the Whittard of Chelsea shop, and it was just like heaven to me. And they are just top tier hot chocolate. So the one that I'm having right now, I don't think you're going to be able to see it. No, it doesn't show up. This is a white hot chocolate, but it's not just any white hot chocolate. It's raspberry ripple flavoured. It's so nice. Like, it's just got that kind of tang for a raspberry. It's so good. They just have the most amazing flavours. One of my favourites is a sticky toffee pudding flavoured white hot chocolate as well, and it's just heavenly. I'm not sponsored by them, I promise, yet. If they're looking for sponsors, I can only imagine that would make my day. Yeah, they've got like really nice teas as well, but honestly the hot chocolates for me is just what absolutely makes it. I actually have a whole cupboard in our kitchen. There's an entire cupboard just dedicated to my different flavours of hot chocolate. I'm not a snob, I'm a connoisseur. That's what it is. I'm not a snob. I'm a connoisseur, a collector, if you will. Kind of makes it sound better, really, doesn't it? But yeah, Whittard of Chelsea hot chocolate has just always been my favourite. They used to have a shop. In fact, they very briefly had a shop in my city quite a few years ago, but it was really brief. I think it was just a Christmas pop-up, and then that was it. I was devastated. I was really hoping that they were going to establish a permanent base here, but sadly not. While I'm talking, I'm going to start stitching something. You know what? I'm going to do some more on that blanket because it's a nice, easy one to do while I'm talking. It's not one that I need to concentrate on loads. Where's my end? So for this blanket, it basically just works on, I think most people know it as moss stitch. I think there's a couple of other names for it as well. But it's just double crochet, if you're UK terms, double crochet, chain, skip one, double crochet, chain, skip one. It's a really nice stitch, but it's a really nice easy one to do while I'm talking, so I'm not gonna have to stop talking and concentrate. But yes, I'm very glad that it's hot chocolate season. Not that I really stopped having hot chocolate, but now I feel slightly more justified. This is the one problem with Whittard of Chelsea being so good, is that they've kind of ruined me for any other hot chocolate. But except Costa. I do love a Costa. But yeah, none of the other hot chocolate quite seems to measure up anymore. But no, I'm really ready for the autumn vibes this year. I'm not normally one of those that kind of goes mad about autumn and like kind of really gets in for the season, but I am feeling it a little more this year. Maybe it's because we had such a hot summer. But I'm really looking forward to digging out all my really cozy sweaters and nestling in with my hot chocolate. Quite looking forward to that. But also autumn does mean yarn fair season, craft fair season, which I'm really, really excited about. The one downside is living in the southwest. We do get a little bit forgotten about by the rest of the country. There's still a fair few on down here. But I want more. There is one on this weekend. There is the Kernow Yarn and Fibre Festival. That one is at the Royal Cornwall Showground. I haven't decided whether I'm going to that one yet. It's a little further from me than the other ones I'm looking at. It's just a bit further of a drive. You know, with the way petrol prices are going at the minute, I'm still in two minds. I'm gonna have to make my mind up. It's on Saturday, so I'm gonna have to decide at some point. Yeah, I just haven't quite decided. The other ones I'm thinking about for this year are the Kelly House Woolly Weekend, which is in Tavistock, not too far from Plymouth. There's the 3 Bags Full Wool Market, which is in Liscard in Cornwall. And then there is Stitchfest Southwest. That one I'm really looking forward to. I went to that one last year as well, and it was really, really good. I've been having a look at this year's workshops as well. There's 1 or 2 I would potentially be really interested in. But it's always just nice to go and to kind of talk to crafty people and kind of look at all the really pretty yarn that I really shouldn't buy, and yeah, I do enjoy it. So definitely Stitchfest. Haven't decided whether I'm doing all the rest yet. I know that my mum was on about coming with me to 1 or 2 of them as well. So I'll see. I know that she's not doing this weekend for the Kerno Yarn and Fibre Festival. She was busy this weekend. But I just haven't decided. Haven't decided whether I'm going yet. But it's fine. The alternative is I get loads more time to do some projects. Because obviously if I'm not spending all day driving, then I'm going to have more project time. And that way I will get some stuff done. I was actually watching a TED Talk the other day. I don't normally watch TED Talks. It's not something, I mean, I don't dislike them. It's just not something I've ever actively gone out of my way to do. But a friend sent me this one, and it was about procrastination. I don't think it was like a targeted thing. We were talking about it in work, and it was about procrastination, and it was a Tim Urban one. I think it's probably one that probably a lot of people have seen. But yeah, he was talking about how procrastination as a habit isn't always a problem. Because more often than not, whatever the thing is that you're procrastinating, it normally does get done, because, you know, the deadline approaches, the panic mode sets in, whether it be a week or a day before deadline, you know, panic mode sets in, and, you know, there's always the risk of kind of some negativity associated with missing that deadline. So whether it's, you know, failure, rejection, embarrassment, there is some negative feeling that is going to make you finish the thing for the deadline. And I was kind of watching this going, yeah, you know, kind of makes sense. But the bit that really kind of made me stop and think was obviously with it, you know, procrastination with a deadline, not the end of the world. It's not convenient, you know, you always have that anxiety and the little panic before, but it gets done. When it becomes a problem is when you have procrastination that doesn't have a deadline. So if you have something like a life goal, or just a general something you would like to do, but there's no definitive deadline to it, that's when it starts to become a problem. Because when there's no deadline, you've got nothing to force you to do the thing. If there's no deadline, you're not going to get the possibility of those negative feelings, that either rejection, embarrassment, failure, all of that. If there's no deadline, there's nothing going to push you to do it. And as I was watching this, I was like, oh, that resonates a little. So yeah, I'm very guilty of procrastination and things like that. But yeah, the procrastination without a deadline was what really started to make me think. Because actually the first thing I thought of when he mentioned this was the portal blanket, and how, you know, this is nearly 2 years in the making and I'm less than a quarter of the way through. So the portal blanket was one of the first things that came to mind when I thought of that. And I kind of started to really, like, I've done a lot of thinking about this over the last couple of days or so. And I started to kind of really explore why, because I've made things for other people before. You know, this isn't the first time I've made something for someone else. And you know, sometimes there are deadlines. If you're making it as a gift for an event like a birthday or Christmas, then yeah, there would be a deadline, and it would be easy to kind of hold yourself to that deadline. Oh yes. But I have made things for people that haven't relied on a deadline, and I just haven't had this issue where I just put it down and, you know, it doesn't get picked back up for whatever reason. In the knitting and crochet community, we often talk about people being what's called knit worthy, which sounds really judgy if you're hearing that for the first time. But basically, if we consider someone to be knit worthy, it's the idea that, you know, these projects, they take a lot of effort. They take a lot of our time, they take a lot of our effort, and we don't want to be giving them to someone who isn't going to appreciate the time and the effort that they've taken. You know, you don't want to give it to somebody who's just going to be like, oh, cool, whatever, and chuck it straight in the washing machine and ruin it completely, or, you know, just take it for granted a little bit. It's like I said, we put a lot of ourselves into these projects because they take us so long. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about whether someone is knit worthy, to be honest, a lot of my friends and family at this point, you know, they know me well enough. They've seen me crafting, and they know how much it takes to do these kinds of projects. So I would consider most of my friends and family to be knit worthy. I don't think there's anybody I can pinpoint that I would say isn't knit worthy. But for some reason it just seems different, and I started to notice a pattern actually, because I have seen online, you know, sometimes it's framed as a bit of a joke, but it does seem to be specifically for significant others, is what I've noticed. Is there does seem to be a kind of a pattern where if somebody makes something for their significant other, that's always the one that ends up late or put down or just takes longer than it should. They always seem to get the short straw. And I just thought, you know, I wonder why that is. Because there's kind of an old myth referred to as the sweater curse, where the superstition is that if you start to make a sweater for a significant other, then the relationship will end before you finish it. And I don't think it's necessarily, you know, that your relationship's on the brink of collapse. I think it's the idea that it would just take you would take so long to finish it, you'd keep putting it down, and, you know, you'd be, you know, you wouldn't be together by the time that you finished it. So it does seem to be a recurring thing, which kind of reassured me. I thought, you know, it's clearly not just me. But then I started to keep thinking about it, and I thought, you know, I wonder why that is. And I kind of came to a bit of a realization, an epiphany, if you will. And, you know, it might not be right. I might just be talking absolute rubbish here, but I thought it seemed to make sense. And I think when it comes to projects and procrastination, because there's not a deadline, I don't think that's actually necessarily the driver. The deadline isn't what's driving us. It's those potential negative feelings. You know, it's the risk of rejection, the embarrassment. So if I make something for one of my friends, or if I tell one of my friends I'm going to make something for them, and then I don't deliver, I would feel guilty. I would feel like they would be polite about it, you know, they'd be really nice, but in my head, I've let them down. I've disappointed them in some way. And that is what would drive me to finish their projects. But I think when it comes to significant others, I think because that relationship's a little more, you know, a little more secure, you're usually a little more comfortable in it, I don't think that same risk is there. I don't think, you know, we look at our significant others and think, yeah, they're going to kick me to the curb if I don't finish their jumper, or kind of a thing like that. And I think that might be what it is. I think that might be why they always seem to get the short straw. I did kind of feel bad about it, because, you know, it seems a bit of a shame, really, that sometimes it's the ones we love the most that end up waiting the longest. But it's because we're so comfortable with them that we know that they're not gonna kind of reject us for not finishing it. So yeah, that was my little epiphany. I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, and it seemed to make a lot of sense to me. Like I said, I might be talking absolute rubbish. I'm not going to start patting myself on the back and, you know, I've solved it, you know, problem sorted. But yeah, I did think that was really interesting. And I think for me, that does seem to be the case. I think it genuinely is that, you know, I don't feel like my partner's going to break up with me if I don't finish his blanket. I hope. So yeah, I think I may have depends. Okay, let me just put this down and get the I'm gonna start the portal blanket again. But yeah, to me that makes a lot of sense. You know, it's the fact that, you know, we're so comfortable with our significant others that we just feel like we'd be forgiven more easily. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Yeah, that we'd be forgiven more easily if we didn't finish their projects. And, you know, it's not to say that, you know, I don't love my friends and family. You know, they're my friends and family. You know, they mean a lot to me, and I would gladly make them stuff. But I don't know, there's just something different about the significant other relationship that I think is affecting it. But I do think what I've been doing so far, in terms of the fact that I have mentioned it on this podcast, I think that's going to be my way of holding myself accountable for the portal blanket, because I'm kind of putting that out to the whole internet. You know, I'm telling strangers that this thing, I've committed to doing this thing, and I think that should hold me accountable. She says. She hopes. Maybe it will. I'm hoping it will, because I do want to get it finished. And I think it will look awesome when it's done. I do think that this is going to look like a pretty cool project. But yeah, I think just finding ways to motivate myself that aren't, you know, because I'm terrified of somebody deciding that I've let them down in some way. Trying to find more positive ways of motivating myself rather than it being, you know, fear-driven procrastination. But I do have other ways to try and motivate myself. I every year I do something that I found on a blog quite a few years ago now, and the blog name is How to Get Your Together. So I'm trying to keep it PG. So How to Get Your Together. She's fabulous, by the way. She's a YouTuber. I think is her name Laura? I think her name might be Laura. But I love her stuff, and quite a few years ago, I think it was 2017? She did kind of a little list, and she called it 17 before 2017. And in essence, it was like a little checklist, 17 things she wanted to have either achieved or just done by the time it got to the new year for 2017. And I loved that idea, absolutely loved it, and I've kind of done it every year since. It does mean that the list has been getting longer and longer every year, so I am currently planning the 23 before 2023 list. And, you know, I'm not expecting, you know, I'm not going to change my life or anything. It's just, you know, small goals. I really like putting together small, very achievable goals that I can tick off. I find that very satisfying. It gives me a deadline for my procrastination, so it does mean that I've got to do it by New Year. But they are, like I said, they're usually really small, manageable tasks. So like, go and give blood again, or do a wardrobe clear out and donate some stuff to charity as a result of it. So yeah, they're normally fairly fairly manageable bits and bobs. So I am currently planning my 23 before 2023 list. And I don't know whether I'm procrastinating writing it down, but I like to have all 23 before they get written down in neat, in my notebook. I can't remember how many I've got. I think I've got like 7 or 8 at this point. This is the problem, is that as the years go on, this list is going to just get longer and longer and longer, and I'm going to have 43 before 2043. I'll have to start them in like June by that point. I think starting in September is I think that's a good time. That gives me enough time to kind of process the tasks, put them off for a month or two, and then actually start going about them. So yeah, I'm trying to hold myself accountable is kind of the theme for these ponderings, these musings. But yeah, it's always really fun making this because the ball of yarn is so big that every time I pull it, it just goes wee, just all around the room. I'm really glad I don't have a cat, because that would just be carnage. Have them running around the room. But you can just see how lovely and chunky that yarn is. So it does work out quite nice and quickly. So we will see. I think I have to finish this ball before I start changing the stripe colour. And then that's the good thing about, I've kind of made this blanket up a little bit. I've followed the pattern and I've gone with the colours and the general idea of it, but in terms of how wide the stripes are, I've kind of just gone meh, see what happens. So I've it's inspired by the original pattern. That's what it is. It's inspired by the original. But yeah, I'm hoping to have this done fairly quickly. It will depend on how much my wrist, how much tantrums my wrist, how many tantrums it causes. Hopefully not many. It's been a long time. It's been a year, nearly a year. It was last November I sprained it. So, you know, buck up, come on. You know, you've had your tantrum, get on with it. It's always really funny though, to tell the kids, especially when I came in with a wrist kind of brace on a couple of times, and the kids are like, "Miss, what have you done to your wrist?" And you say, "Oh, I was doing acrobatics," and then you see them just go, and they look at you as they're trying to decide whether they believe you or not, whether they think you're being sarcastic, or whether they genuinely believe you could be capable of that. It's always really funny to watch, just to watch them try and figure out whether you're capable at your grand old age. This is the problem with kids half the time. If you're not their age, then you're just ancient, you're decrepit. They just have no concept of age. So it's always quite funny to watch that. I think I'm going to finish this row and call it there for the evening. I've been going for just over an hour now. So yeah, if you've stayed with me this long, thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed my various ramblings. I do like coming on here and just talking about my knitting, talking about my crochet. I mean, I do it anyway to, you know, anyone who'll stand still long enough. But, you know, it's nice to have a dedicated space where it's kind of my thing. So yeah, I'm really glad that I've kind of started this podcast again. I'm hoping to keep it up every week. It will very much depend on how busy things get with school. I will be starting my club again probably next week at school, although I'm going to need to change the day because they've moved our meetings. Used to be on Wednesdays and now they're on Thursdays, and that was my club day. So I'm going to have to come up with a new day for my club. But even if it is Wednesdays, it's, you know, it's going to finish plenty early enough before my stream. And it's not like I can't crochet twice in one day. It's like I do anything else. So yeah, I am hoping to keep it up. yeah, we'll see. We'll just see where it goes. I'm not putting any pressure on myself at the minute. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing and enjoying the process, because that's what crochet and knitting are all about, really, isn't it? It's about just enjoying the process, slowing it down, forcing yourself to just be a little bit more in the moment, a little bit more kind of aware, and then you just end up with something at the end of it, which is really nice. You know, I'm all for meditation and everything like that, and you do feel relaxed after meditation, but I just like the fact that when you're done with your knitting and your crochet, you actually have something physical to show for it. So that's one of the reasons I will always love it. There we go. So I've done a couple more rows on that this evening. I might put a stitch marker on so I can show you where I'm up to next time. Although I don't know whether I have a stitch marker big enough to go on that. Let me choose. I'm gonna have to pick one with a really big. There we go. I'll pick my little tape measure. Does that come through? A little bit. Yeah, there we go. Put my little tape measure stitch marker. That's just about enough. There we go. Stitch marker's on, if you can see it. And I might have done some more in it by the next podcast. I might not have. It's been established I'm very good at putting things off. But I will have done something on some of my whips, that I can assure you. Which ones they'll be, it'll be a surprise. Oh, I didn't pick which teddy I'm going to do. Okay, before I log off, I will just do that. I've laid them all out on my floor, and I've chosen 8 to lay out. I'm not going to move the camera and show you, because then I'll end up showing the mess that is my craft room, and I'm not prepared to admit to anybody what the state of that is. So where's my D8? Where's my D8? Oh, there it is. Okay. These are some very pretty dice I got in Truro. If you like your dice like I do, some very pretty dice, like a marbled blue. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. Okay. Let's see. Number 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's the little hippo. Oh, I really like. I'm quite glad that was the first one, because that's actually really close to being finished. So this was that one. You can just about see his little nostrils. So that's going to be the first of the teddy task. Nobody suggested another one, so I think we're going to go with that one. And that's going to be the first of the teddy task projects that I finish. My little hippo. There we go. And then maybe I'll just roll for it each time. I said that one should be quite quick. There is a chance I will have finished that by next week. There is also a high chance I won't have even looked at it. Surprise for everybody. We'll find out. We will find out together whether or not I've touched it. Let's put those dice back. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have had a wonderful evening so far. I hope you continue to have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go and finish my hot chocolate. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much, and good night.